Mayor Carter,
Present.
Director Sofke,
Here.
Director Decker is not attending tonight's meeting.
Okay, for tonight's president's statement, I'm just going to take a moment to mention that the EPA has turned their attention to San Francisco and what appears to be an extreme amount of delivery of raw sewage into the bay and the ocean. And it's going to cost an extraordinary amount of money, probably, in order to not only deal with any fines that might be coming out, but it's pretty easy to anticipate that there's going to be a lot of remedial work that they're going to have to do on the engineering of their system so that this kind of thing stops. And it's a really big example of why it's worth doing what we do day in, day out to try to keep up with the needs of our system, and why it's important that we work with our partners in the sewer authority to keep everything in the collection system and the treatment system down in Half Moon Bay operational and ready for things that come its way. And I think the stewardship that we're showing is good. And if we ever need a reminder of what it looks like if we were to not tend to our duties, it can get outsized and expensive and inconvenient very, very fast. So I guess that's an attaboy to our team and a cautionary reminder about some of why we're doing the work that we're doing. But the bottom line for why we do what we're doing is the health and welfare of the people and the environment where we live, which is such a good thing. It's kind of hard to understand why that would be hard to get done. So glad to be part of the team helping keep it done. Do we have any oral comments for items that are not on the agenda? Looking to the audience, I don't see any hands raised. I don't see any. I see a hand raised. Catherine?
A hand raised, yes. Hello. Some of you may know, others, most of you probably don't know, but I have filed 2 appeals on the adding the bike lanes or to Highway 1 along Surfers Beach between Coronado and Capistrano. I've been working with Len Erickson, who has been delving and diving into the records, and he's a remarkable guy. He just discovered that Caltrans never really told the community about the loss of parking. They decided to put in the bike lanes, and they put that in their documents. They didn't mention that to put in the bike lanes, they have to remove all of the parking. Now, on a heavy day, 200 cars or more will use the parking on the east and west side of the highway between Coronado and Capistrano. This will remove all of it. This will take away coastal access for visitors, for hikers who just want to drive and walk along the coastal trail. Anybody who's not a bicyclist. Now, I have traveled that road for many years, and some days, like on a race day that's been planned years in advance, we have a lot of bicycle traffic there. Otherwise, it's always cars with an occasional bike. So there is going to be a hearing on this at this Half Moon Bay City Council to hear my appeal on May 23rd. Please send letters and emails to Douglas Garrison at Half Moon Bay Planning Department, because the coast did a couple plans, talked about ways to fix this and keep parking and all of that. And then in 2022, Caltrans decided to put in these bike lanes at the last minute. And with kind of oh, by the way, we're getting rid of the parking. And it's never been discussed. I think it's very important, and I was talking to actually Len Erickson about this today, and I said, I had a sneaky feeling, just because I've done county stuff for a long time. That this got snuck in somehow and you've actually found the evidence and the bright red papers. So all of the, and I was talking to a person from Caltrans and I said, you never notified the public. Oh, yes, we had all these public hearings. No, you didn't.
In Oakland, maybe.
Probably it's somewhere and they were probably all closed, but in any event, I think it's very important because the Surfers Beach area is getting more and more popular.
Mhm.
And more people need access to the beach and the gas prices are going up so fast that people can't afford to drive to Santa Cruz. Or up to Mendocino, and so our coastline is sort of the place they come for the beaches. Again, please Doug Garrison at the Half Moon Bay Planning Department. Or to any and all of the city council members. Ask to have it heard at the same time the appeal for the county part of that same stretch of road is being heard, and so that we can work on it with Caltrans, with the county and with the city and with people who live here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. I don't see any other public comment. Let's move on then to the consent agenda. We have the usual 10 items. Does anyone wish to pull anything for discussion? If not, can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
So Catherine and Bill with the motion in second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Consent agenda is approved. New business item 1, review and possible action concerning National Park Service plan for Rancho Corral de Tierra.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, so we were made aware of a draft plan that's been in circulation for quite some time by the Midcoast Community Council. The Midcoast Community Council did also not learn about this draft plan about Rancho Corral de Tierra that is owned by GGNRA. From GGNRA, they learned about this plan from the local horse community, from the Coastside Horse Council. And so we took a look at this plan for Rancho Corral de Tierra, and I mean, the first thing that kind of jumps out is a little bit the story that Catherine just relayed about Caltrans. So similarly here. So there is a series of public notifications that went out, and none of those reached the local community. So the local community that is impacted by this plan is completely bypassed by the notification from GGNRA. So there is a number of changes, many changes to the Rancho Corral de Tierra property suggested, and different alternatives presented. It's unclear which alternative is preferred by GGNRA, or how a final document actually even looks like. It's very unclear, but I think that's part of the purpose of this document. So we have a chance to comment on this draft plan, and prepared a letter from the perspective of Montara Water and Sanitary District that focuses really on on 3 key areas, and that is besides the lack of communication. Back to the lack of communication, I was actually made aware by GGNRA that they have plans to review the trail system on Rancho Corral de Tierra, and that they will start working with this very team on a plan, and asked to be part of this, and laid out the reasons in the conversations with GGNRA. And again, we were completely bypassed, despite the fact that we actually utilize the watershed that's underlying this property, that we have property that is directly adjacent or surrounded by GGNR property. Despite the fact that, according to the, Strata app, the most used trail on the mountain is the Alta Vista Trail, and the property it can only be accessed through Montara Water and Sanitary District property. So again, I think that's I don't want to call that an oversight, but I think this is probably the most critical point that we have to send to GGNRA. We focus further on three other points, and that is our watershed protection, and that is A, from the water side, and B, from the sewer side. We have too little information from this plan, how the suggested changes. There's a number of parking lots, a number of restroom facilities, camping planned in the area, campground planned on the GGNA property. And it is unclear, what the water sources are. There's mention of potentially connecting to the MWSD system. And we have no understanding of what they're really talking about and how this should work. The other point that we are noting here that is very critical is that there's several sections in this plan where GGNRA expresses interest in utilizing the Caltrans right-of-way to improve the trail connectivity, as we actually suggested to GGNRA. And that was essentially the cooperation that we suggested. And so we, of course, have drilled multiple test wells within the right of way. We have made significant attempt to acquire land for ultimately the water supply additions. And so we want to make it clear that we are continue to be an interested party in acquiring the right of way, and ask for involvement in any development in this area in our watershed. So we're asking the board to review the report, and hope you guys have a chance to do that. We sent it out early. And also review the attached draft letter to the National Park Service. And we're asking for authorization for the board president to sign the letter, or a letter that is approved by legal counsel. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll always make a point after the presentation to look for who's got hands. Bill?
The single most important thing about this seems to be the general attitude they have. And I think it's the right one. On page 4, the timeline starts with community brainstorm and site management plan, goes to environmental and cultural compliance, then to design, and then to implementation. That seems incredibly reasonable, and it does make sense that you would put at least 2 years between community brainstorm and site management and actual design. That's what's in their plan on page 4. Well, we are the 4 elected representatives of this community, and it is now 2024. And page 4 says the community brainstorm and site management plan goes from May to December of 2022. It's approximately 2 years ago. So evidently they are 2 years behind their timeline, because the people of Montara only found out about this now. So what we really need to do at least is make sure they slow everything down by 2 years, because the numbers on this are off by 2. They say there's a star, right? We are here. The red star says 2022. My calendar says it's 2024. And we're first hearing about it. So they're 2 years behind, and they need to give us 2 more years to give input before anybody does anything.
All right, thank you, Bill. That's it.
I guess my concern is, I've been on the board the shortest time of all of you, but I haven't seen any documentation that we've been pursuing the Caltrans right away recently. So can somebody fill me in? When was the last time we really did something about trying to get the Caltrans right away for our water system.
I would say that all of the real estate possibilities are handled in closed session, so that's. a
Oh,
closed session.
okay, that's, I still don't know when it is, so I'll wait till
Right.
then. Thanks.
Let me just say that Caltrans and all the folks in charge of this are aware of our desire.
We've had meetings in over many years, gone to their headquarters in Oakland, met with leadership at various places for lunch. We've written letters, we've talked to the county, to state parks, to Caltrans, to legislators, to supervisors. I think if we made the list, it would fill a whole page of the people that we've talked to over the years.
So that's recently.
Well, no, that's over many,
Yeah.
that's over many years, and our interests have not waned at all.
Okay.
We've been very clear about our expressed desire, and we've brought it before the public many times to talk about the need, some of the things that we're interested in trying to do, and sharing what we can. Real estate's always a bit tricky, as you know, so.
Yes. Okay,
Catherine?
I don't see any mention in here of the ocean or the coastal act. I wonder if they're aware that there's an ocean out there. They're certainly unaware of our community. And I'm going to say that Larry DeYoung and others are active on this. And to the public at large, if you don't want campgrounds with loud music, because everything has batteries now. Get a hold of your board of supervisors. That would be Ray Mueller. Get a hold of Larry DeYoung. Get a hold of GGNRA. Stay in contact with us. One of the things GGNRA is unaware of, and it's, I end up talking to people about this fairly often, and they go, oh, that tunnel, and I go, you don't understand what that tunnel represents. It represents some of the people early on getting introduced to the internet. That was how we got organized before anybody else had it. Thank you to one of the leaders. We had a phenomenal crew of leaders and a phenomenal crew of activists. And if we're going to make a difference in what goes in our backyard, we need to be there. We need to attend those meetings. And I see all of this really nice generalized statements in here. They haven't talked to any of us. I know Larry DeYoung is very upset about some of the problems that have been raised about horses and dogs and water pollution. Now, I've been in this community well over 40 years. My neighbor who passed away had been there 40 years before I got here with his horses, mules, and dogs running all over the place. And people have been running horses, dogs, mules, and all kinds of critters out there. And they should really do an inventory of all the critters that are out there. Raccoons are amazing for the amount of waste they produce. Birds, deer. There's all kinds of things out there, foxes, gophers. This is, and by the way, I worked, and I think Scott, you did too, on getting this to GGNRA in 2011. We spent about 10 years working on this. You too.
Clarence.
Yeah, I just wanna, maybe for background layout, what Catherine, just referred to, the horse community, and Larry is, taking the lead, on this, Larry Young. is really concerned about the argumentation or the point that GGNRA is trying to make to reduce the number of horses that are using the Rancho Corral de Tierra, and as Catherine pointed out, have been using since horses are in the United States. So this is coastside culture and tradition. And GGNRA is essentially saying that there is a bacteria problem due to the horses, while the study that GGNRA is looking at uses a tracer bacteria that doesn't exist in horses. So there is some significant problems with GGNRA's viewpoints that should be corrected. I'm not a biologist, but I understand that somebody should take a closer look at why GGNRA wants to reduce the horses. And this plan clearly impacts the culture of this community quite a bit. So, I mean, in general, it provides access to, the larger Bay Area, to this region. But as it stands, it significantly reduces the access that the local population has and had since thousands of years.
Yeah, I want to weigh in with it. I want to weigh. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to say there are two other people you need to keep informed. Because they're going to be representing us in congressional district, one of them will in congressional district 16. And these are questions to ask them when they're here campaigning. One is Evan Lowe from Santa Clara. And the other is Sam Licardo from Santa Clara. And I won't talk about them except to say, we need to keep them informed. We don't want to drop in on them after they've been sworn in. They're going to have a whole lot of stuff. Let's make local stuff a priority for them and let them know that we are Montarans and Moss Beach. And we're the twin sides of the mountain. And we expect respect, not bureaucraties. Okay, so
I'm gonna take a turn. I would mention that both Evan and Sam are vying for a spot that has been held by people who knew our community, been in our community, spent time with us. Jackie Spear spent a good bit of time here on the coast, Anna Eshu as well. It's going to take some work. It always takes work to get our other electeds to see us, get to know us, and learn to respect. But that comes through outreach, phone calls, letters, emails, invitations to coffee, going to meetings that they have. All of those things work and they add up. So a few minutes here, a few minutes there. Next thing you know, they're talking about, that recreation area right outside Montara and Moss Beach. We can get them talking about it and thinking about it. And when they think about it, they are a primary source of funding to GGNRA, which is a federal agency. So Catherine mentioned the different kinds of animals. One of the reasons that we know that these animals have an impact on our waterways is because some years back, a study was done looking at Deer Creek feeding into the harbor. And they did DNA analysis and determined which animals, or at least which genus was adding material to the creek that was polluting the waters, to try to understand why there were some of the water quality issues in the harbor. And it was very interesting that one of the principal contributors was they could narrow it down to a bovine DNA. And I learned deer are part of that family. And so it's very likely that a lot of that contribution was from the wildlife. So something to think about, and something we should be talking to these folks about, is what's your wildlife management plan that's going to keep the animals from fouling the water that flows into the area of special concern, which is the water
Yes,
all
yes.
all up and down our coastline is actually specially designated. I like the letter. I want to make sure that we copy in some folks who might be interested. So obviously Larry and others that you've already mentioned. Clearly, I think we should be copying in coastal, especially their planners, I would think. And we might want to think too about sending it to the staff or to, address it to the two people vying for the open seat in Congress, just for their information. But it helps when people who receive a letter see that people they've heard of also got a copy. And the people who receive it, all it really takes is one or two of them to weigh in to alter the shape of the conversation. So I like that we're calling for a conversation. By the time we get to where we do have to sit down with them, I hope we have something of a checklist of a number of the things that we've observed so that we can know how much ground we actually get to cover with them and help them understand the scope, because nobody knows more about the kind of issues that we're raising than you and Tanya and, some of our other staff. Okay, that's my bit. Bill?
Now that Catherine's mentioned the horses and you've brought in the deer and the other wildlife, that points out the things I'd like to talk about if I ever get invited to one of these conversations, because I can go on and on about scientific truth, maybe in ways that people don't want me to do. But the particular thing which matters here, and I've been thinking about this before this showed up, what we have here on Montara Mountain and in this area is a magnificent source of darkness and silence relative to the rest of the Bay Area. And it is an absolute benefit to the human nervous system to be exposed to darkness, silence, natural noise, and not mechanical noise, radio waves, flashing LED flashlights, cell phones, and all those other things. And that is just a point of human biology, which after the conference I was at last week, no one in the world could possibly make me off. Everything I'm talking about has been utterly validated, brand new. So what that says is we ought to encourage organic inputs and not inorganic. I would love deer and horses and human beings to be traipsing around, and zero cell phones, zero LED flashlights, zero radios. We can leave the sound and the lightscape exactly as it is and leave it open to humans to enjoy and recover from. And I know I want to talk about that.
Okay, Catherine.
Just one quick question. I don't see a lot of alternatives in here. I see a heat walk map and a land analysis and stuff. One of the things that has happened here is that housing being built by humans is always built in the easiest places. So it tends to start in the flatlands and in the dryish flatlands. But where we have waterways that can spread out, and the new science, Bill will confirm this, I'm sure, is that we're using watershed management and wetlands and water and plants to purify from the waste uphill. And as we've moved ourselves out, we've gotten rid of our stream channels with the wetlands and the biology that eats that up around them. It's now used as farmland. And so the plant life is turned and they don't get the synergy of biological processes that's there when it's just a marsh. I would love to see us bringing these kinds of things up, because what they're trying to do here is just more of the same. They're not designing this for our special place.
Yeah.
They just pulled some ideas off a shelf and said, oh, that'll work. And I'm even wondering, I mean, one of their ideas, which is an old idea, which the community laughed at years ago, was to put a bathroom and a park, 3/4 of a mile in from the highway. So people could camp in there. And they'd end up, as I recall, having to cut a new road and improve the road, probably asphalt it, and make the matters worse. Instead of trying to work with what should be happening here. And this overnight parking, having this overnight camping anymore, as somebody who still does it and enjoys it. But they're next to habitated communities. Like you say, the LED this, the radio that, the TVs, the sound, all that stuff. It just, we need to protect what is a very special wild area adjacent to 6 million people.
Mhm.
Real quick,
Let's go to Sid and then to you, Clemens.
I'll be pretty quick. Clemens, can you be sure if you're gonna see more people to put Supervisor Mueller and the MCC on there? Because Parks District did come to see the MCC in person, not just via Zoom. And they gave kind of a presentation too, so I don't know if we'll ask for that here. We usually, I don't think we have visitors often, but it wouldn't hurt to say we want to see you face to face. And then the other thing I was gonna say, to the point of the noise, is I went over the hill today with somebody and they mentioned that people are dropping like M80s or M100s out the window up and down the coast and scaring the bejeebus out of people.
There's one last night.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't hear it, I'm off in the boonies, but I mean,
We thought we were.
if and if you have, you know, a national park with a big old parking lot and a campsite, who knows if more people will discover us and start throwing M80s and stuff and parking their car and playing their radio really loud and that sort of thing, like what Bill mentioned. Anyway, that's it.
well, I just wanted to highlight, I'm not sure if Bill did this, I didn't hear it enough, that what he's pointing out is actually affecting the wildlife much more than humanity. We're of course concerned about our well-being, but
Yes.
this is an area that I think everybody here would like to see conserved as much as possible and the wildlife protected. I think everything that you bring up is really counter to that.
It occurs to me, and let's go ahead and wrap this up. I think if I looking around, do I see consensus that we want to send this letter?
Yes.
You're okay with me signing this?
And I think the idea of all those CCs is really good, it's good.
I just want to observe one last thing, and I see Tanya here with us tonight, and I'm very happy to see you. Every time we've put any project forward, it's not unusual for us to have something at least this thick, but oftentimes much thicker, and spending a lot more time talking to the regulatory agencies and the affected parties. And I would expect to see in here biological assessments.
Yeah.
I would expect to see in here impact assessments for the recommended projects. I would expect to see,
Yes.
given the impacts, what mitigations they were planning. I would expect to see what things they could not mitigate. And I would also expect to see, Catherine touched on it earlier, alternatives that might have less impact. And I would like to see, and it's normal, and we have to do this, we have to say, here's the thing we want to do, we examine the alternatives, this is the alternative with the least harm. And for the harm that is necessary to do this project, here's what we're going to do about it. This is a travel brochure. And I already found a couple of things that are just flat wrong. I mean, just they don't know the area. They say some things. I'm like, well, it looks like somebody crossed up some handwritten notes while they're out, driving around or
After the
something.
round. Show
But I mean, this would feel for us very subpar, and we're a small agency. I expect a little bit more from the National Park Service, and so I'm looking forward. Maybe they have a lot more of this. Maybe you haven't seen it. So I look forward to the conversation with them in the interest of stakeholders exploring what I think their intentions are good. We have this treasure, do some things to improve the treasure, to care for the treasure, and make it available to people in a respectful and manageable way. All these are good. We know that we're stewards of this area. That sense of stewardship is what led to the tunnels instead of the big 6-lane freeway over the mountains. We get it. But the way you get there was a lot of communication, and I'll just mention the mouse that roared. Sometimes
We need to put it
you
back up.
sometimes you got to hoist the flag, and
I remember the Dutch year.
thank you for bringing this to us, and a big thanks to Larry and the Midcoast Council for really driving on elevating this to where the community can really get some eyes on it, and I'm glad we're participating in that.
One small suggestion,
Yes.
put that kind of, add in, we would like as a community to have access to these reports and studies. It's all digital.
Hmm.
Tell them to start a website that we can,
They may already have one.
They have one.
well,
Okay.
then we just
Secret
need
website.
to have access to it.
If you already know some of that stuff, if you could let us know, that'd be great. All right, well,
But let me just add, one of the things about Montara and Moss Beach and El Granada and Pacifica is we look like sleepy little communities. Guess what, guys? There's some super smart, amazingly educated people who live here, and this mountain is a part of everybody's habitat here. And we pay attention to the lizards. There was just a picture on Nextdoor. Somebody found a little garden snake that they'd never seen before, and 14 people were identifying it and talking about its habitat. People here care, and we don't want to see big things. When I got on this board, Joan Briotti was on, and she was furious. Never forget this, that they were going to build a parking lot to get to Montara Beach because it would kill the gophers.
Kill the golfer.
She was ready to sue, and she was a good attorney. So we got people like that here, and yes, let's make a difference yet again, guys.
all right. Well, our our hackles are very firmly raised. Let's
Finn
go.
has his hand up, it looks like.
Oh, Pippin, yes, I'm sorry, didn't see your
It's
hand.
okay, Catherine just sparked a memory from, I believe, one of the residents on Date Hart Street last year has photographs of an animal in their front yard that appears to be one of these super uber rare, like tailless beavers or something like that, these creek
I think it was
beavers?
badger.
which
Yeah.
or a badger or something. It's an animal which has not been seen much in this area, and there's a lot of incredible waterways back in this particular area that they're talking about developing. And I'm just wondering, since they haven't really done an adequate bioassay of what's back there, there could be a lot of wildlife that needs special consideration that we're not even sure about.
Yeah.
I have to admit, one year I had a gardener and he came up and he brought this frog with red legs up and he said, "Ma'am, I found this in your trees." And I said, "Oh, go put it back."
Clemens?
Yeah, I think we should also copy in the what's it called? The Fish and Game Reserve.
Fish and
well,
wildlife.
Filter Fish and Wildlife.
Well, U.S. Fish and Wildlife and California, the Fish and Game.
Yes.
Yeah. And I don't know if it would matter, but the Army Corps of Engineers might be interested as well. There are
Oh.
navigable waters of the
Okay.
United States, which is their domain. So any of the creeks would fall under their purview to some degree. So they would be, I mean, what you really want is to send it to everyone who would be notified if we send it to the state clearinghouse, right? It's interesting that the federal government doesn't have that that to use.
That's
Maybe
still-
we can introduce them to the state clearinghouse. For those who don't know, there's a state agency that when we're going to publish a document, they can publish it in a way that all the interested parties can be notified. And so it's a when you do things, you get a lot of eyes on what you're planning to do, and that's good. And we count on that. We utilize that service to make sure that we see things that we have an interest in, and others do that for the things we do. So it's all good. So we can stir up that communication. Let's go ahead and go on to item 2, receive report concerning PFAS sampling.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. So. Yeah, this is, all right. So, I mean, this is really an official notification to the board, wanna, say right up front. So we've been talking, here, a little bit about PFAS and the, new regulations that would come up, that just actually now kicked in. And, so the board has already a little bit of an understanding of what PFAS are, also called forever chemicals. And this is really 3 different groups of chemicals. And ultimately, in these groups of chemicals are multiple other chemicals. So it's been known since a very long time that there's a health hazard that comes from the PFAS, from the forever chemicals. But the rules and regulation to come up with those has really posed, or how to regulate those has really posed a problem to our regulators. Because for example, we wouldn't have been able to sample properly for PFAS, some years ago, because there was simply no sampling protocol established. Right? You have to develop an accreditation program, and then you have to figure out how to get the labs accredited, etc. So this is kind of what's happening at this point. Now, this month, on April 10th, the requirement for all water districts in the state of California to sample all their sources kicked in. And what this means is there is now 3 years of time available to assess if each source is contaminated with PFAS or not. And we were actually a little proactive here. We have a good reason to be. We actually sampled before the April 10 date. We have now an understanding that the labs are able to handle this since some time and have experience with it. So we now sampled in March before this actually was published. And really the reason is we are participating in a class action lawsuit that has the potential to recover some of the funds, all of the funds that we need to deal with this problem. And the results that we now received were mostly positive, so we can say that all the water that was served in the Montara and Moss Beach area is free of the forever chemicals, with the exception of the Pillar Ridge community. Pillar Ridge community built their own water source decades ago, and some years ago, the Montara Water and Sanitary District took over those sources, and so because Pillar Ridge the water system in Pillar Ridge is fed by its own sources, it is currently not connected to the other public system that we run for Montara and Moss Beach. So the problem is confined in the Pillar Ridge area. So we found what is called PFHXSs in as well as PFOAs, as well as PFOSs. So all 3 of these groups of chemicals in the Corona well. We're now required to notify the board, notify the state. And we're also choosing to notify the community that is affected. It's not a requirement, but we're of course doing that. The first action that we did after finding PFAS was to turn the well off and stop producing that source. There is another well, the Culebra well, that we were not able to sample during that round because it was off for maintenance, and it was brought online since. And so it was also sampled. We just got the samples today, and unfortunately, that well is also affected. Coastal County Water District has a well in this area. We have communication with them. They also turned their source off. At this point, it's my understanding, leave it up to them, but they are aware of the situation. So we're here essentially going through the notification process, and I understand that there are many questions on how this will continue and what we're going to do. And I'm going to say that it's very difficult to answer because obviously there is a treatment requirement after the 3 years after their determination is a treatment requirement. But nobody knows how to treat these chemicals exactly because they're so different that for one application, one treatment method may work, for another source, another treatment process may work, or you have to combine various treatment processes. It's essentially, at this point, not clear, where it's clear that each source has to be essentially assessed on how it could be treated, and that's why the regulation of these PFAS is very complicated, and the state really doesn't have a plan this beyond the 3 years. Of course, they do, but there's nothing established at this point, but beyond this 3-year requirement. So this will all be developed, and we're maybe the first one that discovered a problem like so in our direct vicinity, but I'm afraid that we're not the only ones that have to deal with this problem. So yeah, I think that concludes my report. I want to thank Tanya, our water engineer, for helping us quite tremendously with this entire process. And she's also here in case there's some questions that I can't answer. So thank you, Tanya.
Sid?
Yes, Clemens, you said you turned off the Corona well, and at that time, the Culebra well was offline, but now it's online, and yet you just got the test results and it's affected too. So how does Pillar Ridge get water now? Sorry.
Both wells were off. So the Culebra well was off at the time the Corona well was sampled. Corona well was turned off immediately after the sampling result. We never turned the Culebra well on to produce water. We only turned it on to sample water.
Okay.
So that water was not produced. We have a connection. So I just said there's no way that the water that is produced in Pillar Ridge finds its way into the rest of the system, but there is actually a way to feed the system through our sources, and we've already switched over. We're quite often switching to our sources. For example, when we get notification for PSPSs, fire danger, it's just so much more fire water available in the larger community that we're choosing to switch over to essentially feeding the Pillar Ridge system through our sources. But again, it is impossible for any water to flow the other direction and contaminate larger system.
Well, I was just concerned that community was going without water because we had to turn off their two wells.
That's not the
But I
case.
didn't realize we could feed them some other way.
Right, I mean, quite frankly, the state would allow us to continue to pump if we notify the community. We're of course notifying the community and choose not to produce at this point.
No, when we took responsibility, they already had a connection to us that they could use for, kind of basically backup supply.
Yeah.
So we've long had a connection to conserve the agency or the community, so.
Good.
But it does create the, a scheduling and management challenge for the team to make sure that there's adequate supplies now that two of our sources are offline. But that's also part of, state water requires that we have extra sources so that should something happen, we can shift up our plan a little bit and still have enough for everybody. Catherine?
Couple points and Tanya and Tiffin, I'm looking for you guys. One, these things have been a pollutant of concern for a very long time. And so the other is that it's found in things today like lipstick, plastic food containers. Things that we use in our everyday lives. And so for Pippin and Tanya, there's been discussion at the water organizations about what the federal government was going to do. I think there's still discussions, but then aren't there, of removing these things from wastewater. And they don't know how they're going to remove them. They don't know what the cost is going to be, but they darn sure are going to make us do it. And then, gosh, maybe that we'll get the technology. And it's the same problem for water. I think what they're going to, I'm one of the questions I have is, so it's in our wells at the Pillar Ridge. That water goes into the harbor. Does it take these chemicals with them? They've been found in all kinds of things, just like the super microplastics. And I think we're going to have to deal with this as a water district. It's going to be expensive. And this goes to show exactly why we need the Caltrans right of way for our wells. And we need to lay claim yet again to it for this Rancho Corral de Tierras project. Because if we don't keep yelling, they've tried to forget us for years. But they won't.
We have a new supervisor.
So okay, Sid?
Real quick question, Catherine, you said the Pillar Ridge water gets into the harbor. I don't know how that would be possible. Do they don't
Well,
pump down there?
I'm not gonna give you a lesson in hydrology and
Oh.
groundwater flow.
Okay, so it's not being piped down there, it's just flowing
Oh, anything that goes to sand winds up in the water. Yeah, that's for
in
sure.
this
So-
harbor.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, depends on which way the currents are flowing, but
Okay.
certainly. Clemens, do we have anything that we should hear from our consultants, or if not, we can move ahead. I'm glad to see you both, but it's
Well, let me say it this way, if we are hopeful that we can actually add to the notification that we attached here, the newest result from the Culebra well, that the Culebra well is also affected. So we're hoping to change the notification and send it in a changed form out by tomorrow. And I hope that will work. If not, we will have to go through a second round of notification for the second well. And then I'm just gonna ask Tanya, did I forget anything, Tanya? Is there anything that should be added to what I said?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered everything. You covered everything. And we're looking at options, right? We do have 5 years to develop a plan, and implement it. So there is time, but for that period of time, these sources will be offline.
Well, and here I was hoping that we'd be one district that could say, everybody but us. So guess what? Join the club.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad you're on it, and we'll look forward to seeing the kind of things that you come up with.
Thank you.
So this was an information item. Let's go now to item 3, review and action concerning receipt of funding for FEMA declared disasters on behalf of Sewer Authority Mid-Coast Side.
Yeah, thank you. So we've been previously reporting to this board that we applied for funding for the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast side from FEMA and Cal OES. And that grant was a success. And so we've been previously already receiving funds. So this district is receiving funds and then essentially transferring them to the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast side for the project implementation. And so I want to notify the board that we received an additional $360,000 and some cents, and we will transfer those funds to the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast side. So Sam will have additional $360,000 to work with. Thank you.
Well, that's great. And let me see if I can do this. I'll hold this up because, you know, whenever you get a big check, it's not just one check. This is really kind of neat.
Big thing you hold up your cameras.
Yeah, this is let's see if I can do this. Here we go. Well, that's really not the way to show it off. It's like I don't know how to use a computer or something. Let's see. So I'll show them one at a time. Or I'll just show you two. This one's for $288,000.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so state of California from the treasurer. The treasurer of the state will pay out $288,334.43, and then another one for $72,083.61. This is terrific work, and I really like how it shows interagency collaboration to achieve something that we both wanted, and neither one of us could get without the other. So this is great work. Sid?
I think it says here that both SAM and MWSD participated in the LHMP, which was the local hazard mitigation program, and I don't think the other districts did,
Actually,
or they did.
Sam is not participating. We are participating. That's erroneous. We are participating. Sam is not eligible to participate, and that is why we applied. I believe the city of Half Moon Bay may be part of the LHMP, but Granada Community Services District is not.
It said here somewhere in one of these paragraphs that they did, so that's what I was quoting. But anyway, my question is, the other district, the other two sewer related districts didn't try to participate in the LHMP.
Again, the city is participating in the LHMP as far as I understand.
Okay. But they use our district to do the
No,
grant.
no, they're eligible to participate directly. And Sam, as a
It's
joint
not.
powers authority, is not.
So. We got some money, happen they get money too,
No,
back to
we've
Sam?
been applying together with Sam for the Sam funds. And so we are receiving the funds and handing them to the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast side. The two other agencies are benefiting from this grant as much as we do, of course.
Did we have a grant writer get this money, or how did we get it?
well, I'm
just
gonna-
curious.
I'm gonna point again to SRT. Tanya is here.
Thank you,
So
Tanya.
Tanya was essential in getting this grant.
I guess it took a lot of time just to put the paperwork together for federal government purposes. So thank you so much, Tanya, for your hard work.
This was more than just this process because you helped us first with the LHMP and then the grant. Thank you.
Well,
Okay,
thank you for saying that, but I just would like to point out that what is really important is the leadership of this board in going through the process and participating. It was a long process. It's the process that is led by Sanitary County. It's very big, right? All agencies participating, or most of them, and the board members with the, of course, information received from your general manager, you made that decision and provided leadership, and that's why Sam was able to recover the funds. It's a really great corporation, and your leadership is remarkable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think part of what makes this work is people keeping an eye out for the opportunities, raising the flag, getting people together to talk about it, and then seeing, okay, how can we go at it? And then working with experts who it's like filling out your tax forms, if it's complicated at all, you can do it yourself. Good luck. Or maybe bring in the professional. And when it comes to these kind of things, the amount of expertise is so vital to putting together a really solid application package. And Tanya has been very good at finding opportunities and then helping us make the applications, and on many occasions actually receiving the award. So it's one of those where you've got to be present to win, and it helps to have an expert. And so Tanya's work is I gotta say, Tanya, your work with us has taught us to go ahead and stick our necks out sometimes and go for grant money that a lot of agencies don't know about or don't think they can get. And you've helped us take many shots, and it's really been a benefit to the people of the community, because all of that money helps us do things that we might not be able to afford to do, or might put a real dent in the wallets of the community here. So any way that goes, it's a benefit. Catherine, did you have something?
No, you said what I wanted to. Tanya, thank you for you're sticking with this board. I realize sometimes we're a little bit difficult to work with.
we are.
But I see Allison smiling, yes, and we love all of you guys. Because you do have great ideas, and you follow through, and yes, you argue with us, and that's a very important part.
We appreciate the opportunity and the challenge, so thank you.
So
Well,
All three of us here.
you can count on us to provide a challenge. Sid,
So my
one last
follow-up
thing?
question really was, we don't have an in-house grant writer. We do ask people like Tanya to help us. It's not just Clemens or Tracy or Allison, it's a team effort.
It's a team effort,
Thank
but
you.
our consultants they're part of the team.
They're knowledgeable too.
And I mean, we started working with Tanya how long ago? It's a while.
22 years.
I think it was in 2022, because I remember
No, 2002.
2002. I had trouble with it. Anyway, because I remember meeting her out there at the schoolhouse tank.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I was in my normal Montara clothes of Birkenstocks and jeans with honest holes in them. And here's this woman dressed in Chanel.
No, I wasn't.
With shoes and stockings and just so made up. And I said, sure, let's go up and look at that tank in the mud. And she passed the test. She walked right up through the weeds and kept everything clean. I still don't know how, but
Let's go to Clemens.
Yeah, so to your question, I have to mention the San Mateo County Resource Control District
Conservation District.
that we're essentially using quite a bit as grant writers that are keeping an eye out for us as well. Tanya, Pippin do this as well and help us, but the RCD deserves definitely a special credit. We just actually at the last meeting brought the news to you that we received that we're receiving a grant through the RCD that the RCD applied for. So we'll continue, of course, working with them on this project and hopefully others in the future as well.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that's terrific news, and thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Pippin. You both have been with us for quite a journey, and we really count on you and your expertise and your. I think you guys understand the hearts of the community pretty well, and that's just why it's when you say we don't have people on staff, it's like, well, I don't know, on part of the family for sure. Let's go to reports. Do we have something for the sewer authority?
No,
Okay, do we, and I don't see Greg here tonight. Do we have anything for the Midcoast Council?
not that I know of, and nothing for Blacko and nothing for the CSDA.
Okay, let me just say on Midcoast Community Council, just a shout out to Greg and the others on the Midcoast Community Council for really really shining a light on the thing going on with the GTMRA proposal. It's good to be able to have collaborators who can help raise the issues and work with us, and Larry DeYoung as well has just been outstanding on raising attention. And he had hoped to come and present to us, but keep an eye out because he's got a lot to say on the subject. And a lot of it is very well put together. And I do believe Larry is a biologist. So
Yes, he was a researcher.
so pay special attention when he speaks biology. All right, Christine, do we have anything for the attorney's report?
I do. Thanks, President Boyd. I mentioned last meeting that I was going to be attending the CASA, California Association of Sanitation Agencies, attorneys spring conference meeting, which I did. And it was my first time with that group, and it was just excellent. I don't know how many members they have in CASA, but they range from cities that operate their own wastewater, water, to special districts like us. But it was great to be in a group of like-minded attorneys talking about the issues that affect us. And there's too much to really summarize, but I thought I'd just pick one topic that we talked about, and that is Senate Bill 1072, which is called Proposition 218, no refunds, a colloquial, no refunds bill, law, meaning that generally if ratepayers, interested parties want to challenge our rates, our Prop 218 rates, they bring an action in court for declaratory relief. And then the court determines, did the agency violate Prop 218 and illegally adopt rates or increase rates? And then the remedy is, okay, the district would have to adopt whatever the remedy is, change their rates if they were violated. There's no monetary remedy. However, in the past several years, ratepayers have been, if they do challenge a rate structure adopted by an agency, they're filing class actions and asking for refunds. And some of the lower courts have granted that relief, and it's now being appealed. But it basically would require an agency who is found to have violated Prop 218 to pay millions and millions of dollars to the class action plaintiffs. And that would come from of course, all the ratepayers. So in any event, the SB 1072 would preclude that type of relief, not allow plaintiffs to sue for refunds. The remedy would be that if an agency is found to have violated Prop 218 and adopting their rates, that they would have to somehow account for it in their future rates. So anyway, it was kind of an interesting topic, and because there's some Southern California agencies and cities that are currently involved in these lawsuits that are now on appeal. So that's my report.
Questions?
Question, go ahead.
Christine, when we do Prop 218 rate things, isn't that preceded by a rate review process? And then when we notice it to the community, they have the right to, collect enough letters to object and get it so that we can't raise rates. But after we've done it right the way we're supposed to, how could they have then come by and say you didn't do it right? Or is it other districts that are not doing it right? I'm just curious how those lawsuits started.
Well, you've correctly laid out the process. There is a process that we go through to raise rates, and if ratepayers disagree, they do need to object during that process. And if the agency decides to adopt them, adopt the rates regardless, they still can sue. After that, they do have to notify you during that process. That's called an exhaustion of administrative remedy. But that just because an agency complies with the process doesn't relieve it of a potential ratepayer challenge. And it's up to the courts to decide, did we comply with the law? Did the agency correctly, pursue the process? A lot of times the challengers do challenge the rate studies that we have our experts prepare, and the basis for it. That's usually where they go. It's not usually procedural challenges like we didn't notify everyone or whatever, but it's usually substantive challenges to our rate studies and how we're determining what rates should be. That gets very technical.
Well, I know usually we get a very minimal amount of protest letters, so I was wondering what's their
Right.
standing, but I forgot the rate study they might deem it to be flawed somehow.
Or we went through an action long before I got on the board about the way that the agency was going to try to raise money to help pay for the sand plant expansion. And some community members took that to court and said, what you're doing doesn't fit with the law. And I think that I have a very thin understanding of this, but basically with putting a parcel tax on undeveloped
I
lots.
remember.
And the argument was that you're basically pushing people to develop. And it's that kind of thing where somebody can say, what you're doing, you don't actually have a right to do. And then they will, those kind of things do come up. Now, what we do is pretty much, the same thing we've done many times. So we've got a lot of confidence in it being appropriate. But even this agency long in its history did something, and I frankly really agree with the outcome of that suit. I think putting that tax on an undeveloped lot was an inducement to develop, and it didn't seem right. And in fact, there are other ways to raise the money. And so
The other recent thing I remember about that was that at that time there was a water moratorium, so you were trying to tax vacant parcels that could not build because of the moratorium. So that was part of their objection to being taxed.
my only real point is that there's the process, and you can follow the process 100% right, but you still might have an incorrect basis. And if somebody wants to say that fit with the law,
Okay,
they can bring that.
thank you, Christine.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Clemens, anything to add to your general manager's report?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Okay, and we are going to end the closed session, end the open session, thanking the public. Thank you for joining us. We really do very much appreciate your participation. If you're watching at home, thank you. We look forward to any kind of feedback or participation you might want to bring forward in the future. We really do like hearing from you, so stop us when you see us or send us a note. I go to the post office at least every 2 weeks, so funny thing, the more I work at home, the less often I went to the post office. Okay, we're gonna reconvene then after the public has departed. We're gonna reconvene in closed session for conference with legal counsel for the existing litigation with City of Half Moon Bay suing Granada Community Services District and us and Sam. If we take any action, we'll report that out after we come out of closed session. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Good night.